Morning, everyone. There's actually more of you here than I expected, actually, so thank you all for making it this morning. I know it's extra hard at the moment with the kids being at home, and we know there's been a lot of sickness going on, so really do appreciate you popping along today. So like last time, just some general housekeeping and group agreement that obviously anything we discuss in here stays in here. Mutual respect, no judgments. We're all here to learn. Children, if you've got them at home, which I'm sure you have, obviously just keep your mic muted if you can, but obviously your kids come first, go see to them if you need to. I am recording this session just so if any of you have any technical issues or any things come up, you can access it at a later date, or indeed if there's anything you need to refresh on. If you want a comfort break, we'll check in around about half an hour, just see if anyone wants to have a loose stop or go and grab another brew. Kelly Evans is just joining us now, Debbie. So like last time, Debbie is with me. Debbie, do you want to give a wave? Debbie's with me. She's just about to finish her sleep practitioner training. So she'll be fully qualified as of next week, hopefully. So yeah, she's going to monitor the chat for us and respond to any questions. But if there's anything we can't answer here and now, because I'm probably gabbing, we'll try and get back to you as quickly as we possibly can. Okay. I'm just going to flip through. Right. How did you all get on from last time? I know we've had one or two successes, and I know the time right now probably isn't the best for implementing new changes when there's already so many changes going on. Especially, with our children with autism and other communication difficulties. So anyone want to shout out any reflections on last week, since we last spoke? And any of you, I know we've had quite a few diaries off yours, which is absolutely fabulous, and we're working through those and putting them in with your initial paperwork so that we can help you with a plan. But yeah, anyone want to start first and tell us any reflections, how you found doing the diaries, anything you learned that's helped? Anyone want to speak? Claire, would you like to share how you've gone on? Because I know you did all right. Would that be all right? Claire Hardy? If anyone wants to unmute, just say how you've got on.
Isaac's actually done brilliant with this.
Yeah?
I'm a bit optimistic because he might start screaming. But it's just as if it was meant, he was wanting to go into some kind of routine, but because I didn't know how to set it off.
Yeah.
But obviously last week, like a couple of weeks ago, you told us, but yeah, he's doing brilliant.
Brilliant. Oh, that's great.
Trying to jump on his bed and that when he's going to bed, but at least he's got the gist of what we need to do.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
And I'm actually getting sleep.
Yeah, that's what we want. That's what we want. That's what we like.
But
that's brilliant news. So long may that continue. And I mean, like we said right at the beginning, whenever we're implementing changes, sometimes they go down incredibly well because the kids are screaming out for that structure and routine. But other times, the children can be very resistant to change. So yeah, it's about perseverance, really. And so I would expect to have some wobbles. I mean, you will go through, some more awkward days, I'm sure. But
I'm expecting him to push back when he starts back at nursery, actually.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be another change going back to nursery. So I am expecting a big change.
Yeah, well, preparation, getting ready, forewarning him what's going to happen, that'll definitely help. Anybody else like to share the thoughts on the last session and, whether it was good, whether it was bad, whether, we appreciate any feedback, really. Anything? Anybody want to share anything? Hands up or press your hands button. Kelly Evans, would you like to share? Unmute. You're still muted.
Hiya.
Hiya.
So we've had some good success. Obviously, as you know, we are having to use medication at the moment, and she is still managing to force herself awake on some occasions with that. So that's a little bit difficult. But the routine-wise is very similar to what we were doing, other than taking the blue lights away, which I have noticed a good improvement there. And also, she would normally create around this time, where bizarrely we're seeing a total different side to her, which is really, really good. She's definitely a lot more calmer, and she is self-settling. So it's just mastering this, keeping her asleep.
Right, okay. Well, hopefully we'll look at that during today.
Good.
Brilliant, well done. Anybody else like to share? Raise your hands. Anybody? Not seeing anybody? Right. Okay, that's brilliant news, you two. Absolutely wonderful. That's, you know, we've had some other comments back and feedback from people who can't quite make it today to say that they've implemented one or two things, and they're seeing some, like sometimes minor changes, but positives all the same. So that's really, really good. I'm going to put my screen share on. Let me just get my PowerPoint up and change that. Be with you in 1 second. Now where we go? Right, 1 second. I'm going to share my screen. Right. Now then, this one, will probably say, hang on, we're here to sort our kids out. We want to learn how to sleep. And yeah, we do. But most important, that our kids pick up when we're stressed, we're tired, we're anxious. And sometimes as parents and carers, we lose sight of who we are as individuals, and our world is just focused on the kids. Which, you know, we do automatically. It's what I did for, you know, a long, long time. And it took me best part of 15 years of just purely revolving around my son. And I say he was gone 15 by the time we resolved his sleep issues. But if we don't look after ourselves, we're not going to be in the best place to support our kids. So it's a really, really important part of any new routine. So we need to reflect a little bit on how we feel when we're trying to support our child to sleep and they're being challenging. It's bloody hard, excuse my French. It can be, I can see some nods there. It is hard. It is, you know, you can become very frustrated. I mean, anyone want to chuck some emotions out there, how it feels to support your child when they're battling against you? Kelly?
You feel a bit of a failure sometimes.
Yep. But you're not. You're doing your best. You know, we are all doing our best with all the skills we know how. Our kids don't come with a manual. And in one of my other programs that I co-deliver, it was brought up by the other facilitator. They said, if we were given a manual for our kids with additional needs would probably have a few extra pages. But we're not given a manual anyway. So we learn as we go. And we learn by experience, we learn from each other. And, you know, by coming to something like this, hopefully we can learn from each other. And the next 2 sessions will be much more interactive, where we can sort of support one another. So like that time and this time will be a lot of information at you, but hopefully, you know, we'll be able to communicate a bit more and get to know you guys a little bit better. And then we can build up another circle of support. So it's really important that we do learn to look after ourselves. And I know in the early days when my lad was kicking off and being resistant and, he was almost having like psychosis events, or that's what it felt like to me, when he was trying to get into sleep. I felt helpless. I felt totally out of control. And those feelings and emotions actually transfer to your child. So if we're feeling anxious, that'll carry over to the child. So it's really, really important that we learn some strategies and learn to take time for ourselves. It is not being selfish, looking after yourself. I make a point of doing at least half an hour every day. I find it somewhere to make sure I go and do something. And usually it's hitting stuff. I'll go to the gym and when I'm allowed and beat the living daylights out of a punch bag. I feel wonderful afterwards. So yeah, we do need time to recharge our batteries and feel us, because we're entitled to a life too. In your packs that you've got this week, in your handbook, there is actually a section in there, and it's basically looking after you. And what I'd like you to try and do is just try and think, what did I used to like doing before I had children? What was it that I enjoyed doing and would like to do still? And how can I make that maybe happen in the future? And I know COVID's a pain in the ass and it's stopping us doing so much at the moment. But even if it's just phoning a friend or having a Zoom and a coffee, you know, that's still time. Or even just going, having a read a book, even if it's on the loo while the kids are banging on the outside. You know, just try and grab those few minutes as you can, because it will make you much more able to cope. And that's where I'm coming from with all this, is that it does enable us to be the best we can be to help our children, and they'll pick up on that. Okay. So moving on, the bit you really want to know, how to make sleep happen. I think that's what you're probably all were just waiting for when we started this. I can see a few smiles. Right, I'm just going to get my bit of paper here. So melatonin, we briefly mentioned this last time. So melatonin is the natural producing hormone that comes from the pineal gland at the back of the eye, and it regulates your body clock. So when it's dark, when it starts to get darker, your melatonin is produced, and that helps you, support you to go to sleep. So that light and dark plays a big part. I know at the moment we've got a lot of people almost going nocturnal on us. I know in one of my groups that I run, my autistic adults, that none of them are going to bed till 3 a.m, and then they're sleeping till lunchtime. So yeah, we're having a real issue with them, and that's part of not having structure and routine. We also mentioned last time how screen devices, the blue light, sort of almost puts the blockers on the melatonin production. So that is the reason we say drop your screen time. It's not because we're being nasty and we say we don't want them on them devices. We don't particularly want them on all the time, but it's that reason, is because it does block that wave to naturally producing your melatonin. As I said, the things that work against and sort of block, the other things that block melatonin are cortisol, so that's connected to stress and anxiety. So if you've got a very anxious and stressed child, they're less likely to produce much natural melatonin. And I think that comes in particularly a lot with children with autism, ADHD, who may have communication difficulties. And I think a lot of paediatricians and doctors are quite keen to hand out melatonin tablets. Like we said last time, we know it can help you nod off, but it doesn't actually make you stay asleep right through. So if we can find a way of reducing anxiety during the day, so I wouldn't say if your child is verbal, we wouldn't suggest talking about the stresses of the day, say in your golden hour. We look at the stresses earlier on in the day and discuss those. And I've got some quite good resources that, if we've got time, we'll either discuss now, or Debbie's got all the links that she'll put on. We've got some brilliant books to work on anxiety and understanding that, and trying to lower that cortisol. Also, if they're very hyper, and they're not getting as much, say, sensory input as they may need, the adrenaline from all that bounding around will also counteract the melatonin production. So it's important to address any sensory needs, and get the child as calm as we possibly can, and reduce that adrenaline as near as we can towards bedtime. So we need to keep that environment as low as we possibly can in terms of arousal. We touched last time on sleepy foods. Now, food and eating are again another big contributor to sleep and the quality of sleep. Eating a big heavy meal before bed, so particularly in the 3 hours before bed, your digestion is still working, and that affects the quality of your sleep, particularly your deep sleep, which, as we saw last time, that's your restorative, your body growing sleep. So if we're having big heavy meals, so say a child would have a big heavy tea at say 6 p.m. and then you're starting and they're in bed by 8, chances are they're not going to have a particularly good quality sleep. But something like a supper, particularly in smaller children whose tummies are small, a little bit of a light supper, rich in some like carbs, so like a piece of toast, a bit of oats, some porridge, things like that. Not too heavy, small amount of that can make a big difference. Now, the Sleep Charity do produce a cookbook. Here we are. So we have the Sleepy Food Cookbook. That has gone out to those that paid for the materials to be posted. So we managed to include that in that pack. If anybody wants a copy of this, we can send them out, and they're coming out at £4.50 for us to post out, if that's any good to you. But there's all sorts of ideas for teas. So teas that would not be too heavy, but have enough like complex carbs and nutrition in them that would sustain through the night, but not be too heavy, that is going to cause interruptions with your digestion. And there's also some really good hints and tips in here as well. I know some of our kids are a bit reluctant to certain foods. I know my lad on his beige diet for so many years, but by offering up certain things and just giving them choices, it might help. So that's available. If anybody would like one of them, drop us a message on the chat and we can organise one of those. I'm just going to get my other bits of notes because I'm getting a bit behind. 1 second. Okay, so yeah, so things like chicken and what have you are really good foods for tea time. Like during the day, things to avoid. So anything with like caffeine, a lot of sugar, because obviously that's going to affect other levels, your sugar levels, and that's going to give you a sugar high or a spike, and so that'll be getting your adrenaline going on the build up towards bedtime. So try and reduce the sugar intake if you can. Caffeine, even I won't drink anything with coffee or with caffeine in after 3 p.m. myself, because I know that will impact my sleep at night. And again, I know if I have a big tea at 8 p.m, my husband's late from work, I know I'm in for a bad night. So it's just things to be mindful of. Again, with naps, and I know sometimes our kids, especially if they've been up quite a few times in the night and they'll be exhausted, try and avoid naps after 3 o'clock, because again, that is going to make a big difference to the quality of sleep. And if they have naps later on, chances are they're going to be waking up during the night. So again, I know it's hard, but once they get into that routine, hopefully they'll be able to stick to it. It does take, as the last time, 2 to 3 weeks. It's hard at the moment for exercise, getting them outside, and particularly when the weather's pretty dreadful. Like it's absolutely peeing it down here today. So regular exercise, one, gets rid of any excess energy. It also can give some sensory input. So little and often with the exercise is a good one. Now, obviously, it's got there, a bit of milk. They used to say, milk will help you sleep. It does. If you like a bit of milk, some warm milk, there is something in that. Stick with that. Sensory needs. How many remind me, because I've not got all your papers, how many people have we got with, say, autism, ADHD, and other sensory issues? Oh, we've got a few. Right, okay. So this is where Debbie will probably have to rein me in a bit when I get going on sensory. Okay. Right. So yeah, it's really important that sensory needs are met. And sensory considerations, we'll come back to that one in a minute. I'm jumping ahead a little bit here. So noise and sound is a biggie. And that is one of the triggers potentially of why a child might wake up in the night. So if any sounds have changed, how many, I bet we've got quite a few that have got noise sensitivity during the day. Have we got a few there? Nobody's coming up. Ear defenders are a good thing, using little and often. They can really make a positive difference. White noise CDs or on an MP3 player consistently playing through the night can help some children, so it's worth a try. It works for some, doesn't work for others. Now, your touch, have we got any that sort of like strip off and in the night or anything like that? Yeah, Claire, right, okay. Obviously, check for seams inside your clothing. If they're very hyper, it means they can't stand it. They need it away from it. Hypo means, they desire it. So basically, anything without try and find something with flat seams that could potentially help. Tags, you probably know this one already. Anything with a tag in it, most children would want that taken out. Touch, I know my own son, he hates it if I do a light touch, but give him a firm hug or some deep pressure, that can make a big, big difference. And when you're giving deep touch pressure, that's giving not only that tactile one-to-one feedback that some children will want, but by doing it as a deep way, you're giving proprioceptive feedback. So that basically can help regulate some people with sensory processing difficulties. Hands up, has anybody not know what proprioception is? Right. Quick, in your book, we've sent out a pack with what your sensory systems are, the main sensory systems. But the simplest way I can explain what proprioception is, and this is the biggest one that affects a lot of children, particularly children and adults, because if you've got it as a child, you've got it as an adult. Proprioceptive feedback is a subconscious sense that tells you where your body is in the world. So you guys probably will, without thinking about it, you know your bum's on your seat, your feet might be on the floor, you might be having an elbow on the table. You know that without even thinking it. Children or people with poor proprioceptive input don't know where that is. And they don't know where their body is in the world. So it feels almost like they're floating. And their central nervous system is going from jiggling around, not knowing where they are. And when they get some feedback, like a jolt or some deep pressure, that makes the system go from being this to almost this. And by doing an activity or addressing that need for, say, 20 minutes, it can give up to 2 hours of calm. And that's why these suggest doing a sensory diet, or it becomes a sensory lifestyle of doing regular activities every few hours. So it could be that you might do a movement break. A way of getting proprioceptive input might be bouncing on a trampoline. It could be rolling on the floor. It could be running. It could be carrying things from one place to another. Get the kids involved on unpacking the shopping. you know, moving things from one place to another. That physical movement, if they have that capacity, get them involved. If there are either physical difficulties where they can't do that, deep touch pressure, massage is a way of doing it. Your weighted blankets are a great passive approach. Obviously, that's what we do at Stitch Different. We're not here to flog stuff, we're here to give you information, but if anyone wants anything, you know where to come. Weighted blankets and compression are a way of getting sensory input. It's classed as a passive approach, and that's why it's quite good as a calming technique. So when they're resting in that sort of golden hour, you can put something on them or do some activities. Yeah, we'll get some of the products later if we get a chance, and we'll show you those if you want. Smells can play a big part in affecting the sensory system. Actually, it's probably one of the first senses that you come across, really. Anything that you remember as a child, that'll stay with you for the rest of your life. So be cautious. Some like strong washing powders can be good, or it can have a negative effect on the child. Essential oils can be quite soothing. Lavender, chamomile, things like that can be quite calming. Be cautious with lavender if you have a child with epilepsy. Check it out with any paediatrician if your child does have seizures, just to make sure that that won't affect, because it can have a detrimental effect on some children. So your light sensitivities, again, we're talking around sleep, we need that darkness. So look in the bedroom, think about, you know, are there any little lights on? Has there been a TV on during the day and there's still a little red standby light? Bob a bit of blue tack over that, that might solve that problem. Think about the types of light that are in the room. In terms of sleep, if a child really requires a night light, orange light is particularly good, or even red. But tone it down if you can. I know there's new light bulbs out there now, and I've just invested in a load, and they're absolutely brilliant. So yeah, an environment, be very careful on your bedroom colours. So if you've got very busy patterns, that can be disorientating to a child. Think about what's in there. We need to keep the environment as calm as we possibly can, and in what's called a low arousal room, so taking away as much stimuli. I'm just going to come back to the sleep difficulties. So the things that can, you know, make sleep a bit harder for some is getting to sleep, staying asleep too much, and anxiety. It's like we talked about, anxiety is a biggie. We really need to look at that. We've got, Debbie, where's that book on anxiety that I had? Sorry, I'm just going to get my book on anxiety. Send you a link to this. This is a booklet on the anxious child, and it's basically about for parents and carers wanting to know about anxiety and some strategies. We can send you a link to that. I also have an activity book, no worries. Again, we can send links to this. And this basically is quite a good little book. I would say probably more for an older child, probably 8 and 9 plus, who might have the capability to, you know, if they like to colour or, you know, do quizzes and puzzles, that's quite a nice little book to work through. So those can be particularly good books around anxiety if you don't have access to any support. Because I know at the moment getting hold of support for like mental health and anxiety is a bit tricky. And like I said, sometimes the difficulties can overlap. So it might have anxiety, but might not have the communication skills. A lot of the problems are around communication, understanding when it is time for bed. They don't pick up the social cues. They might have a physical health complication that might be causing them pain or distress. They may have sensory issues. So again, we need to look at these. So there are also certain syndromes where it's just renowned that they don't produce melatonin. I know some children, particularly with ADHD, don't produce as much melatonin, but there is research to say that could be down to the anxiety or not keeping the arousal levels low enough. Right, how we can help. 3 key areas. Routine, that is the biggie, absolute biggie. Consistent routine. All children like predictability. They like to know where they are, what's happening, and it can be quite confusing when they don't. I'm a big believer in virtual planners. Do any of you use virtual, visual planners at all? Sort of Now Next or Routines? Yeah, Claire's raising her hand, wonderful. And Claire, well done. And Kelly, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. If you don't use them and you think it might be something you'd like to try, let us know. We've got access to mountains of resources, and we wouldn't want you spending any money unless, if we've got them, don't pay for them. We'll send them out, we'll email them if you've got access to a printer. So yeah, routine, that's crucial. Your environment, the bedroom environment. So look at the light bulbs. Obviously, if your bedroom, your TV, we talked about that last time. Try and take your TV out of the bedroom if there is one. If you can't do that, put a cover over the telly. That can make a difference. And then we're going to support our children to sleep on their own, because it is a skill. And that sleep on their own, and that's the room that you want them to sleep in, and not be on the sofa and then carrying them up, because that confuses the hell out of them. It really does. Right, so consistent routine, how we can support this. So this is ideally, when you're starting new, it's sometimes good to have a written plan of how we're going to do it, and we can work with you to do that, and that's what we'll be looking at in the next session as well. We're going to look at how we can learn to wind down and relax, make the world consistent and predictable. It makes you feel secure, and then learning to be soothed. Now, as you say, it's going to take at least 2 weeks of implementing a good routine. I'm not saying now is the best time to do it, with COVID going on and the homeschooling and already having changes. And I know some of you already are implementing these changes, and it's absolutely amazing. If you are, stick with it, you'll get the long-term results. And it's remember, a consistent routine, it must be 7 days a week. And if we allow our children, you can have a late night, actually, you're giving them sleep deprivation. It might think, yeah, I'm giving them a treat. You're not really. Find a different treat. And your life will be easier, because the last thing you want is a grumpy child the next day, extra grumpy because you've let them have a late night. Good routine, like we said, crucial. So bath time, somebody mentioned to me in a comment that, they find that a bath stimulates their child. Now, if you do find that bath time or shower time gets your child really, really hyper, I wouldn't do it at night time. Change it to a morning. If it's an alerting experience to the child, do it in the morning. Don't have your bath too hot. Keep it as a warm temperature. I think for your normal body temperature is about 36 degrees. So I would say a bath around about 37 degrees is about the right temperature. So I'm going to put my coat on. I'm not heating on again today. We're in our community centre, and we're only allowed in it for an hour a week, and we're frozen. So in our routine, plan quiet time, in between, it could be quiet time. That's a great time to build up that one-to-one relationship with your kids, because sometimes we're too busy just getting through the day that we don't actually cherish the times, because we're too busy just coping. And I think the golden hour is an absolute ideal time to bond a bit more with your child. So plan some quiet time, hand-eye coordination activities, things like, threading, colouring, Play-Doh, a great, block building. Again, as long as it's calming and not alerting. We don't want an activity that is going to be triggering them off, because it's about lowering that adrenaline and keeping them as calm as we can and stopping them going into that fight-flight mindset. And then, because once they get into that, the adrenaline kicks in, and your adrenaline, once it's kicked in, it takes a good hour and a half to get out of the system. So there is no, if they get to that point of being really, really hyper, forget it for an hour and a half. Let that adrenaline come out of the system. So yeah, try and keep your bedtime routine as calm as we can, which I know when we're starting something, we're going to get some resistance potentially. But you know what works with your kids. You're experts in your children. So once they've gone upstairs and into their room, ideally, we don't want them back downstairs. So if your bedroom's upstairs and you've had your bathroom, so once you go up for your bath, try and keep them upstairs. And then they're not coming back down. We're getting them prepared and ready for bed. So like I said before, that screen, I know we keep banging onto it, but it does make a big difference. And then, again, like that timing. So if we're going to do a story, we'll make a plan and we'll do a story time if that's what they like. My son hated me reading to him before bed, absolutely detested it. He didn't want me anywhere near. But, it's what works for your child. Really important to have that set phrase at the end when you're either, letting them drop off to sleep. So, like, it's nighttime, go to sleep. Because that phrase, when they're nodding off, if they wake up in the night, remember that phrase. And this is why it's important to look after yourself, because if they wake up 3 or 4 times in the night, we need to remain calm, take them back to bed. It's nighttime, go to sleep. Stick to that same phrase. So developing a routine, there's some strategies, some ideas of what we can do there. In the environment, like we talked before, reduce the light, reduce the noise. Be conscious during the night of any changes regarding sound, light, particularly temperature. And there was one of, I can't remember the name now because we've had quite a few papers come through, but one child was going off to sleep but waking late in the night, probably in the 3rd cycle of sleep. We talked last time about your sleep cycle lasting 90 minutes to 2 hours. And we typically would go through 4 sleep cycles in a night. And I picked up that somebody was potentially working in the 3rd cycle, the end of the 3rd cycle. And we thought, hang on, that could be potentially temperature, particularly at the moment when the temperature, if you don't have heating on in the night, your temperature gauge goes off. It could be that the child's getting cold at that point. So it might be worth just checking your temperatures. That can be a big one. And sometimes another thing that can be a trigger regarding temperature, we had a child where the boiler was in the child's bedroom and it clicked on at 4:30 in the morning. That sound and the whoosh of the boiler turning on actually woke the kid. So by adjusting that time to slightly different so that the child was in the deeper phase of sleep, the child slept through. So it's just little considerations. So obviously the room wants to be comfortable. If your child's in a bed, is it comfortable? Get in it yourself. Because sometimes we as with our kids, and I know I did it myself, we would just buy a cheap mattress. Oh, it's fine, he's only little, he's only light. But is it actually comfortable? Is the pillow comfortable? What's the texture of the bedclothes that you've got? Would it be comfortable to you? Just double check it. It's just worth thinking about. And obviously, make sure the room isn't too stimulating. So we had a case study a bit ago who had marble wallpaper and they had all these figures that the child loved, but of a night, it became too stimulating for him and it actually stopped him from going to sleep. So, think about that the room's not too stimulating. There's an image there. So And they do this in schools, you know, they put, for kids with sensory difficulties, they've got posters everywhere. And I'm looking around the room where I am now and there's bunting everywhere. And for many children with sensory difficulties, that would be too overstimulating. So if you've got things like that in their bedroom, is it going to be too stimulating of a night and it might be stopping them from going to sleep? Or if they wake up in the night, is there a shadow that might just disturb them a bit? If you've got a child that talks about, oh, there's monsters under my bed and the things like that, please don't buy into that. Just, oh, hang on, Debbie's talking to me.
Go in a dark tent.
Yeah.
Won't go into his bedroom.
Right.
Okay with dark.
Right. Debbie's just brought to my attention that we have a child on the programme that will go into the dark den, but when they go to bed, they need a night light on. Night lights are fine if that's what the child needs. The LED ones are particularly good, and if you can get one that's, say, got an orange glow to it, that might help. But say, look at that image and look at all those things that are going on. There's quite a lot that can be stimulating. So I know we don't always have places to put things in our houses. So if it's a case of you have got a lot of toys and things in the bedroom, maybe put a sheet over them. That can help quite a bit. Blackout blinds are invaluable because the light changes during the night. And again, if your child wakes up in, say, the second or third cycle, particularly the later cycle, if there's this very subtle change in the lighting, say the lights have come on outside or the sun's starting to rise and there's a gap around the blind, that can cause the child to wake. So a blackout blind can be very, very useful. We've got one here actually. Yeah, we have a portable one. We've got quite a good few resources here at Stitch. That's a Grow Anywhere blind, and that just clips onto the window. And it's great if, say, your child has to go elsewhere, you know, so if you've got another partner's got the grandma's or whatever, that's portable. So you're creating the same environment in each home. And that, again, is crucial. Think about the environment where they are with you guys. And then if they go to elsewhere to sleep, think about that environment too. And I know communication with some families can be a little bit tricky, but it is really, really important that we address the child's needs must come first. So communication is key. So if we can sort of share what you're doing at home that's working, and then, or even write a plan, say this is working at home, this is what we do here, it works, you'll get a better night's sleep if you follow this plan too. Send that plan over. Right, this is the good one. Sleep on their own. Consistency again is the big word today. So your bed where you want them to sleep in. So again, that old thing of falling downstairs, sleep downstairs and then carrying them up, get them into where you want them to be. Now, there's a couple of strategies. I think I don't know if you looked at them last time because I forget what I've done sometimes. The main strategies we work with our children in regards to falling asleep initially is gradual retreat or rapid return. Did you all have a little look in your packs at those? Got a few nods? Good, good, good. Any queries on that, we'll put some messages in the chat and we'll go through those. So these are the main issues, and getting them back to sleep when they wake up, what we're going to do about that. Basically, we need to, once you've done your routine, leave the room. Say, you know, it's sleep time, good night, leave the room. If you know that that's going to cause great anxiety, suggest you use the gradual retreat strategy. And that would be where you would stay in the room with the child. And this is the strategy that worked with me and my son. And initially, I would be in his room and I'd have my hand on his chest. He knew I was there. This was before we knew about weighted blankets, by the way, because we didn't know about that. We're talking 10 years ago now. So I would be there with my hand on his chest to give him some deep pressure. Didn't realise what I was doing at the time, do now. And we did that for 3 or 4 days. But you need to stay there for at least, I'd say 15, 20 minutes for him to nod off and get into that slightly deeper stage of sleep. You'll know when you've got it wrong, because if you move too soon, they'll be wide awake. So I would suggest at least 15 minutes. I say if they do wake, you've not stayed long enough. Stay there, do that for the first, say, 3 or 4 days, and then gradually move down the bed. That's what I did, was put my hand on him. It could be that you could just be in the room and sat there. Could be on the floor, or just in the room. But the idea is, over a period of time, you're going to slowly retreat. And then the child doesn't become as reliant on you. If they're concerned about you being, if they've got anxiety, am I going to be all right? Are you going to be there? If they got the understanding, say, I'll be checking in on you during the night, don't worry. Even if you don't, tell them you're going to do that. Because if you're in the land and nod, it might just lower some anxiety. So, gradual retreat. If you choose to leave, if they're pretty good at self-settling, obviously go and disappear, go and have your brew and all the rest of it. But obviously if they do wake and they are anxious, straight in. That's your rapid return strategy. But whenever you do this, limit your interaction. Keep your gaze down, try and stay calm, use your set phrases. Don't alter from whatever that set phrase might be, because that giving them more to think about, and they'll fire back at you. They're more likely to interact with you more if you're going to give them something back. So just think about those two strategies there of what will work for your child. So there we go. Once you've left the room, if they cry out for you, go back. We don't want any kids really, really distressed. But if they're not getting any interaction from you, they'll soon get bored. And they should hopefully go back in and, settle down. I'm sure you'll know if there's the difference between a cry when they're just wanting your attention, or if they're, say, in pain. We've got to be cautious sometimes with children, particularly with communication difficulties and some conditions. I don't know if I mentioned this time about bowel conditions. An awful lot of children with autism have an associated bowel issue. Sometimes it's very mild, sometimes it can be quite severe where they get quite constipated. That can be a reason why a child may not be sleeping, particularly if they sleep on the left-hand side. Basically the weight of the bowel, and if it's full of poop and what have you, that can actually be quite distressing and be uncomfortable. And it could be a reason why the waking in the night, particularly if they're waking on, say, the second or third cycle and they're coming out of their REM sleep. We have a partial awakening, and if you're a little bit uncomfortable or a little bit in pain, you are more likely to wake. And if they're in discomfort, they will probably cry. So just be mindful of that. And if your child does have either a condition or something where that happens, go and see your GP or your paediatrician and get it looked at. I know some of you are on Movicol and things like that. I know my own son, that was a big problem for him, and I didn't know about it. So it's one of those that I just chuck out there because you don't know what you don't know, and it might be useful for some of you. Obviously, if they've left the bed, calmly escort them back with as least fuss and interaction. This is the bit where looking after you comes in handy, because if you've had a crap day and you've not had any time to reboot yourself, you're probably going to be a little bit more anxious. You're not going to be as calm, and your child's going to pick up on that. So it all sort of feeds into each other. We probably will need to repeat this process, especially when we're putting in a new routine. You might have to do this 10, 20 times the first few nights, I'm afraid. But make the interaction less and less and keep guiding them back in. But also think about what reasons why the child might not be sleeping. Environmental, pain, hunger. You know, just think about those things. So we need to think about when they wake up. I've done this myself, where they've got into bed with me and they just nod straight back off. I bet how many of you have got that one? Where they've come into you, or I bet there's a few, because I know that's what I used to do. Just thought, I'm beyond it now, and let them get into bed with me. It is hard, and this is where your perseverance comes in. Try your best to resist and get them back into their own bed and start again with either your gradual retreat or your rapid return. So this is what we need to be doing. Whenever they wake up and whenever they come back out to your bedroom or whatever it is, the screaming, shouting, carrying on, same strategies apply. Keep calm, no interaction. If they're waking, I want to wee, again, I think it's probably an issue relating to wanting attention. So that would be where I would probably suggest doing the gradual retreat. If you think, hang on, they do need the toilet, obviously we would go to the loo usually before nodding off or, you know, being put to bed. One of the little strategies, and I always forget what I've told people sometimes in different sessions, but one of the good strategies, and I use this on a night out still now, is you go to the loo, you go to the toilet. When you've been to the loo, either stand up and do a 360-degree turn. And what this does is your bladder isn't a natural funnel. There's lots of little pockets in your bladder. And by jiggling around, when you stand up, obviously empty your bladder, stand up. And then if you do, say, a 360-degree spin, it dislodges the last bits of urine. And then you can potentially say, go and clean your teeth, and you'll probably go and have another wee and get rid of the last bit. If they are still desiring and needing the toilet and going, and you're either having wet beds or they do need the loo, think about the fluid intake before bed. You know, we don't want to be having a big litre of water. We need to be hydrated, don't get me wrong, but we don't want to be having a full litre, you know, half an hour before bed. A small cup would do. Think about the hydration levels throughout the day. If they are having constant needs to get up and they are urinating a lot, check it out with your GP. Just make sure there's no underlying sort of infections or anything like that. But more often than not, when they're crying, I need a wee, or I want a drink, don't particularly, they just want your attention. It's a form of communication. So again, if they're waking up quite a bit, the old baby monitors, you can still use those, nothing wrong with that. If you're concerned about the safety, or if you've got a child that is disruptive or destructive, so if they break things, there are environments available, like Safe Space, do have some specialist sleep systems, and we've got access to those if it's something that you may need, and there is funding available if you've got somebody who trashes everything in sight when they wake in the night, because we have had that before. But there are ways to support those children equally. What time are we on? Right, 5 to. Right, it's about trying to make things positive. And wording. So basically, they were like, we've got there. If you don't stop shouting, I'm not reading your book. It's you know, I'm not reading your bedtime story. We're going to bed. We're going to read a story. The television's going off whether you like it now or not. Things like that. We can support your child by saying, having countdown timers. So you could have a sound timer. So when the telly's going off, prepare your child for the change, so they know what to expect. So just think about how we can change our wording. And I often use the when and then rule. When we've done this, then we can do that. or if they're doing something, good sitting, well done, you've had it, for doing whatever. Positive. The children hear the positives. They're brilliant at not hearing the no's. Avoid the word no and not and don't. There are a lot of other strategies that we can use. The Challenging Behaviour Foundation, who I've done quite a bit of work with, are an amazing organisation. If you've got children with challenging behaviour and are very resistant to you saying, don't do this, and you think it fires them off, going over to the Challenging Behaviour Foundation, they've got an early intervention programme and it's absolutely brilliant. And there's loads of really good strategies on there. There's a lady called Jill Bradshaw who is a communication specialist at the Tizard Centre. She's done a whole presentation on there on how to change your wording and to look at communication. That's a whole session in itself, is communication. The whole thing, you're not having any more toys until you tidy these up. When we've put this toy away, then we can have that one. The other one, and I use this one on my husband. Are we going to the shop before tea or after tea? Things like this. Are we going to have a drink before tea, or are we having a wine before tea or after tea? Either way, you're getting a wine. Does that make? I can see some smiles there. I use that one now with my husband often.
Are we doing the DIY now?
Yeah, are we going to do the painting, before we've done the dogs or after? And this is great for us during lockdown. But use that on your kids and any partners or anybody else you want something to do. But before and after, when and then. I can see quite a few smiles. I like that. They really work. But it's called positive behaviour support. And that is what it's all about, is meeting the child's needs, not antagonising anybody, making life easier for all of us. And by just changing some of our own wording and our own approaches, just subtly, it's those subtle changes, little tiny changes, that can make the biggest differences. So that's what, they can do. Right, so summary then, basically, it's consistency, routine, structure. Makes a massive, massive difference. Rewards can be really useful strategies. So a really good one, now you could use this one during the day or overnight as well, particularly at the moment when you're all stuck at home with your kids. The visual stuff, if you've got a child who wants to be, or somebody who wants to be on a tablet or playing guitar all the time, say Diane, and you basically, you don't want them on it all the time, what you can do is take a photo of what it is somebody desires, take 2 copies of it, laminate it, and what I've done here, I've chopped one up into 5 or 6 pieces. So every time they do something you want or they do something good, yay, go and pick a piece from your iPad and pop it on. So however it goes on, there, like that, whatever. So add it on. And then you build up your picture. So that could be a tablet, it could be some Lego, it could, or whatever it is that, particularly children with obsessions, and you don't want them doing it all the time, this is a really, really good strategy. So Diane, you can do them on guitars and the microphone. I know Diane quite well. So, and basically we can give them a piece and then set a time frame. It could be they're allowed 10 minutes and then we do another strategy. So yeah, things like that are really, really good. I've put in your pack some communication cards. I'm running over time as usual. Now, we've got edited versions of these if needed. Now, these are a visual cue. of supporting a bedtime routine. Now, these will work if you've got a child who already uses this sort of thing. If they're new to visual supports, I would suggest you take a physical photo of, say, if it's around sleep, it would be the bath. Take a photo of your bath, take a picture of their bed, their book, whatever it is going to be part of their routine, and print it off, put an associated word with it, and that way set it in the order that you're going to do it, then the child knows what's going to happen. Again, predictable, they know what to expect. Now, next and then are another one. So another one, again, I've got all these resources, we can send them out. So like, for example, I've got one here, nursery, next is lunch. Then you could either just do now and next, or we can do now, next and then, depending on the child's ability. I know some of you are already using these, which is absolutely brilliant, but I'm sure those that are using them will say how beneficial it can be. We've come to the end of our hour. So what I'd like you to do, if you can, is still please do your diaries and ship them over. I'm going to send out another email with some more blank diaries on. I started to prep an email earlier where I'd put a whole load of visual supports in as well. I'll send it over. If you use them, wonderful. If you don't, that's fine. If there's anything that you need that you think would help in terms of visual prompts, let us know. Please don't buy them, because we can do it. You know, if we've got them, we'll send them over. We've got some brilliant books that'll come in handy as well. So I think, Debbie, are you going to put them on the chat? The little books, we'll go through them all again, either in next session or on week 4. Oh, I'm going to put them on the page. She's going to put them on the page, on the sleepability page for us. Any questions, any queries? No? Oh, Kelly, yeah, go on, Kelly. Unmute yourself, love.
My only thing is she's doing fantastic with the getting into bed. I've got her to self-settle. We've accepted the TB. We've always done a good bath routine. We always do the lavender.
Yep.
I need to check that though, because I wasn't aware of that might interfere with epilepsy. So I only use a small amount, but that is something for me to bear in mind.
Yep.
But it's just, and she self-settles brilliantly. It's once she wakes, it's boom. And then it's shaking of the safety bed that I've got to secure her in because it keeps her safe. She rattles this thing down like anything and will demand that TV on. Now, I've suggested already to Dad, funny enough, one of the things that you mentioned, to cover that TV up. Let's take it out of the picture.
Yep.
Because I can't take it off the wall physically. But I'm thinking I'm going to try that one next, because that's my only real big battle I have now.
Yeah. Or unplug
morning, she's been up since 2:30, hasn't gone back to sleep, is almost zombified because she's on medication. So I've had to say, you need to be more aware of her safety today. And she will go all day, and then I will have no choice but to let her have a half-hour nap after school, because she's going to be hanging.
Yeah, but that nap after school will impact. That might be the reason why she's waking up.
But a lot of the time I don't do that, but it'll only be today because she's been awake since 2 o'clock this morning. She'll go all day at school.
Right. Have a look at the environment, have a look in the bedroom, and have a think, has anything changed during the night? And think about temperature, light, smells, sound.
I'm thinking possibly sound with the radiators, possibly.
Possibly, yeah, and it could be something as subtle as that. Try the white noise, but it needs to be on consistently right throughout the night. And it could be that might be what she's seeking by having the TV on.
That comfort of that familiarity.
Yeah, but it needs to be consistent right throughout the night.
Okay.
So, maybe even put it on at the start of that routine, so she's aware of it. It's worth a try.
I'll give anything a go.
Let us know how you're going on, Kelly, and drop me a message either on the
will.
page or email, whatever. Or if any of you would like a one-to-one phone or Zoom, not a problem. We can fit that in. We've got 2 weeks before our next one, because what we'd like is another 2 weeks of just thinking about routine, thinking about putting a plan in place and seeing how you're getting on. And then we're down to meet, I'm just checking my diary, on the 3rd of Feb. We're back on the 3rd of Feb. So if you can all do the diaries and ship them over, we're analysing those along with the data that you sent in initially to see if we can fathom out what might be going on with your individual children and if there are any specific strategies we can put in place. I have been doing some research on some specific conditions, and getting some feedback from the specialists over at the Sleep Centre in Sheffield. So over the coming weeks, we'll get all that together. So next session is going to be fine-tuning a plan for your children. And then the last session is sort of like fine-tuning and tweaking. But I'm hoping and quite optimistic, by just knowing what to look for, you might find what it is that's going on with your children. If we have that understanding what might be going on, it does make, we can think about it and put strategies in place, changes. And often it is small tweaks, like putting on a sound, CD on. Okay. Any other questions or queries? I'll hang on at the end for another 10 minutes if anybody wants a little chat. If not, I'll say bye-bye for now, and we will see you on the 3rd. So I'll send over some of the resources, and obviously we're recording this, so if there's anything you need to catch up on, we can do. Okay. Nice to see you all, and good luck, guys. Make sure you get some you time. Okay. See you soon.